the Black Fundraisers podcast. Good people, y'all. This is going to be such a treat. I mean, you are in for the treat of your life. I am joined by two courageous, brilliant, and beautiful women. I am joined by Rosalind Wiseman and Shanterra McBride, the two authors of a seminal book. I'm going to call it that. Courageous Discomfort, How to Have Important, Brave, Life-Changing Conversations about Race and Racism. 20 questions about race and racism answered. Hello, ladies.
Hi.
Hello. Hi.
How are you?
Hi, Ross.
Hi, Shanterra.
We're not in the same place, so it's good to see each other when we can. So that's why I was like, hey. But hi, Kia.
Although we do talk to each other about 25,000 times a day.
Yeah, but we don't physically live in the same place.
I bet. Well, it's so good to have you, good people, get into this. So I'm dying to know, and I ask all of my guests who join the Black Fundraisers podcast, it's our icebreaker, it's a tradition here. I'd love for each of you to tell the good people listening one little known fact about yourselves. Roz, go for it.
Well, 3 years ago, I actually started dancing. So now I dance probably 4 or 5 times a week, all different kinds of dance, from salsa and bachata and rueda to hip hop and this thing called Soul Sweat, which is actually like my dance church in a way on Sundays. I go always on Sundays between 11 and 12. So that is something that I don't really talk about. And of course, I was super awkward when I first started, but now I don't care at all.
I heard that, and I never caught on to that bachata. I tried, it just was not happening for me. I just wasn't getting it. So I gave up on that one.
Yeah, it's hard. I got to say, it can be really tough and also feel really awkward. And then once you get it, it gets like everything falls into place.
I heard that. Well, that's good stuff. And you, the lovely Shanterra, a fun and little known facts.
Well, I was going to say that we were introduced to each other before we actually met each other. So that's a fun fact about both of us. But another fact about me is I sang a duet with the Fresh Prince on my 16th birthday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Will Smith?
Yes, before he was Will Smith, when he was still going by Fresh Prince, and this was way. Yeah. So I just probably dated myself
back in the day.
Yeah, this is back in this is when Summertime came out, and a friend of mine, her mom was taking us to Six Flags for my birthday. And she worked at one of the local radio stations. She's like, I have to stop by work. And of course, us, we were like, oh my God, like we were so upset. So then we were in this conference room, basically, and they had breakfast set up. And so since we had to wait, we fixed our plates and we were getting ready to eat, and in walks the Fresh Prince and Jazzy Jeff. And I was truly getting ready to bite into a waffle. And I saw this, and I was like, ooh, and he was like, no, go ahead and eat. And I was like, no. Like, yeah. And so they were playing, at the radio station, they played, you can hear the music. And so I think at that time it was I Will Love You So For Always by, I think it was Atlantic Star, Midnight Star.
You better come on.
Thank you. One of them stars. Yes. And so the female part was, the lady was singing her part. So I was just humming along. So then he started singing his part. Next thing I know, we were in a duet. It was awesome.
Oh, I would have listened.
Yeah.
I love that record.
Yes.
And yes. I would have been singing that song too. I'm not going to lie to you. I would have stopped eating to sing that. That is my song.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, he signed my picture. He signed it to my singing partner, Shanterra. Love.
Do you still? I know you still have that.
Are you
right?
kidding me?
Yes,
I know. It's more. I know.
Yes.
No, I don't even know why I asked. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, the stock on that went up a few times on that memorabilia.
Yes.
I'm telling you.
Yes.
That is a fun fact. Wow.
It was awesome. I
Y'all,
will never forget it.
y'all better be glad social media wasn't a thing, because that somebody would have captured that.
Listen, oh, for real. Because I mean, the
That would
only
have been great.
it wouldn't have been
It
wonderful.
would have
And
been.
it's like every time I have to do something, or every time somebody asks for, I was like, oh, I sang a duet with Fresh Prince.
With the Fresh Prince.
With the Fresh Prince.
Hey,
Yes.
pop your brush your
Listen, what? And we were jamming. It was wonderful.
a songbird.
Yeah.
I tell you, you just learned so much in these. So those are some fun facts. So, ladies, the two of you have done something I consider pretty remarkable in co-authoring the book. I'll share the title again for the good people listening: Courageous Discomfort: How to Have Important, Brave, Life-Changing Conversations About Race and Racism. 20 questions about race and racism answered. I want you to know that here at the Black Fundraisers podcast, we're super excited about this book, considering this actual podcast was created following the murder of George Floyd, during a global turning point in which folks around the world were grappling with how to have these types of conversations in their offices, at the dinner table, in the community. Certainly you remember, this wasn't too long ago, the alleged racial reckoning. It was going down. The last thing that you wanted to be was on the wrong side of the coin here. Either you were anti-racist or racist. And nobody wanted to be mistaken for or outed as a racist. We saw corporations disavowing racism. We saw white people, white folks we ain't never heard from, disavowing racism. We saw books flying off the shelves: How to Be an Ally, How to Be an Anti-Racist, you name it. With all of that said, I'd love to hear from you ladies. What, if any, I don't want to make an assumption, the murder of George Floyd, or even the events surrounding it, had on your decision to come forward with this book or the concept?
I will say the summer of 2020 was life-changing. And I know for a fact that we were both pretty distraught about what was happening. And because it was right in front of our faces, like the invention of social media and how people were using social media was very different. This was not the first time that a Black person has been killed by a white police officer. Like this was not first. But the fact, and I think it was Will Smith who said it, that it's recorded and it's for everybody to see. And so Ross and I have these conversations all the time, and we're the kind of friends that can basically call each other and not do the pleasantries of like, hey, how are you? How the kid? No, it's like, oh my gosh, right? And so I started sharing with her some of the messages that I was receiving as a Black woman in America, and they varied from, can I buy your family dinner? Should I send you flowers? To how is your soul? And it was like, what my soul is good, but I'm sick of this, right? And so sharing that with her really helped us see, like, it was well-intentioned messages and inquiries. Like, people really wanted to know, and when I say people, I mean white people really wanted to know, what can I do, or what am I supposed to be doing? And we were going to write an article. and her husband was like, you're both the speakers, let's talk about it. And that prompted us having webinars and getting people to talk about one of those books you mentioned, How to Be an Ally. And it grew from that, because we realized ally was one word, but people were really struggling with some other stuff. Like, do I have to say I'm sorry? Is that good? Would it help? And that's really what prompted us to write a book.
Well, and I think that once we really started talking about it, it became clear to me that we were uniquely positioned to be able to write and provide resources for people, not because we're a white woman and a Black woman who are friends. That is not enough to be able to say, oh, we know the answers, or can even suggest the answers about how to handle these questions that people ask. We're really good friends, And our friendship is also based on going through struggles with each other, and also because we've been doing the work for 25 years, where people come up to us on all kinds of topics, from young people and parenting and their children, or problems they're having with other people. The questions that people don't feel comfortable asking each other, they often will ask us. And because of that, we're on the receiving end of these questions, but we also have been thinking about what are the answers for all of this time. So once we started, I wanted to write it because I felt like I had never done enough. I'd never been explicit enough about what I felt about these issues with the work I'd been doing with young people and families and parenting. And I needed to be much more deliberate and explicit about why I thought and believed the things that I did in my advocacy. And as Shanterra says, an ally is not just a word, it's a verb, right? You do it. So I felt like I needed to do more. And especially as we wrote the book, I really began to realize that we were uniquely positioned to be able to help people in a different way than, frankly, other books that have come out, because we are on the ground talking to people and giving people realistic suggestions. And we both are in places all over the country. We work in all different kinds of communities, and we both have the capacity to laugh, and even in situations where you just want to put your head down on the table. So I think that that's where we're different, and that I think our strength comes from.
Oh, this is great. And I believe it's just interesting hearing and kind of going back there. I, just like you, Shanterra, had co-workers, white folks. And I know folks that weren't even comfortable before this stuff happened saying white and saying black. It's like, listen, I'm black, you're white.
It was a secret. It was a secret. I mean? People would whisper. Yeah, like,
so he's no, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, we're being honest, good people. If you be honest about it, you know it too. You work with some folks that were scared to say black or why. It was just like we were.
Oh my gosh!
There, right? We knew that we were there, but we were just kind of there together, acting like nothing was going on when it was. Yeah. But anywho, I'm not one to gossip like Miss Bonita, so you haven't heard that from me. But no, but it's real. I mean, I had one coworker to say to me once, I don't really know what to ask and what not to ask, right? And I'm going to be honest, I was hurt, I was angry, I was crying, I was having all kinds of emotions because, like you all pointed out, and like Brother Will Smith had pointed out, this wasn't the first time some stuff had happened. This was on camera, but we were still dealing with Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, Lord have mercy. And it's like, okay, so this is just going to keep going on and on. And these aren't far enough apart. As dastardly and horrific as these events are, we just going to get hit in just one whop and just expect to just live and coexist as though nothing's happening. But what white people were saying to me was, what is it okay to ask you? I don't really know what to say. And I had one Black person I know say, well, you want to ask Black people how they're doing, and like somebody asks you, Shanterra, how's your soul? Want to ask people, and then you got other people, well, want to buy you dinner, how's your son, that they never asked about before because they know I'm raising a Black son as a single parent. Folks really didn't know how to be and coexist. So this is interesting stuff.
And I mean, I'm glad you said that because it was so odd, but it's weird to say, Kia, but it was odd and comforting to hear from people I hadn't heard from in a long time, right? And so you're just like, you thought of me with, okay, with all of this is going on, yay, but really? So it was a weird thing. It was such a weird, and I will also say, I mean, we were in the middle of a global pandemic. So I think that also gave people time.
We had time, as people say.
We had time to sit and look. And I mean, and I will say, I have not, and I will not watch the video of George Floyd being killed. I have not watched the video of Ahmaud Arbery being basically chased and lynched. I have not even watched the footage of Breonna Taylor, of them going into her home. Like, I cannot and I will not do it. And so when I hear from people, and that's why and I use the word weird because it was odd, because I would look at my phone like, really? Who is this again? Oh, hey. And then like, you thought of me. Oh, yeah, I get. It was
strange. It was.
Well, may I say also, one of the things that I knew, but writing this book brought it so home to me, was how much I didn't realize enough how much Black people, when those kinds of sentiments are coming at them, that they are constantly having to measure what they say. And that was one of the things. I mean, I knew it, and I can't know it, but I know it a lot more hearing from so many people that every expression of condolence, sympathy, whatever it is, whatever the emotion that's coming, the most important thing for that person's safety is to respond in the way that they think is the most appropriate, so that the white person or the other person doesn't get upset or doesn't have some kind of disproportionate response, so that they then have to take care of this person.
Right.
And I knew it, but I didn't know it. And I know it more now. And it's so, if there's maybe one thing, there's a couple things, right? Or maybe 10, but of the top 5 that I wish that non-Black people knew better, it's that constant having to monitor what you say and how you respond, because you have to take care of this other person and their reaction. And it's just so unfair, and it is so wrong, and it's so exhausting. And I don't even feel it, but while being alongside people, it's just there. And now I'm like at a loss for words of what that exhaustion must feel like.
No, and I thank you for mentioning that. And I see people talking more about that on social media, with the Queen of England having passed. And I'm going to be honest, good people, and Shanterra and Roz, I put up a post which was flagged as hate speech because somebody got a bee in their bonnet. I just simply put up a post, and I'll describe it. There was a white guy sitting next to Queen Elizabeth's grave, and he had 2 fingers up, and it represented the Black diaspora. Basically, it was like Queen Elizabeth, it was like everybody else, like a thought cloud, and then his thought cloud, and he's doing this, was the Black diaspora. And I simply posted this, and I said emphatically, I would never celebrate someone's death. All I ask is that folks nuance the perspectives. When you think about Black lived experience, the Black diaspora, and what that monarchy represents. And white folks had time that Saturday. A few white folks visited the post and said, well, the hate doesn't make it better, and you're only adding to the hate. And did I say I hated anybody? I don't hate the Queen, didn't know her, but I know colonialism. And I know people that have identity crisis to this day. I know people that hate their skin color, that hate the texture of their hair, that don't even know their ethnic language due to colonialism. I know people that have physical scars, mental scars due to colonialism. And you're saying that I'm spewing hate? So what I'm saying is, I appreciate you, Roz, in lifting that up and lifting up the fact that the oppressed still are having to kind of attend to the emotions of the quote unquote oppressor. I'm not sitting here positing that white person next door to me is just doing things to oppress me from day to day, but am I a victim of white supremacy on a daily? I absolutely am. So for me, as an oppressed person, asking folks to nuance and consider, while some people are romanticizing and nostalgia about Queen Elizabeth and her regime and the monarchy, there are people who lament because she never once acknowledged the impact of colonialism on, I don't know how many countries. I'm running out. I mean, it's a real thing, and thank you for lifting that up.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to my next question. I want to know, how do you define courageous discomfort?
Yes. No.
This right here.
No, and I was gonna say what you just talked about. I think I was just speaking at a place and I was like, okay, now you're gonna probably wiggle in your seat, because what I'm getting ready to say may make you a little uncomfortable. So you know how you just wiggle a little bit, but you also hear it. And so, I mean, when I think of courageous discomfort, I think of all the people who have thought about it, who have thought about systemic racism, who have wanted to say something to a family member, who have wanted to speak up at work, who have wanted to say something when they see something wrong, when they see a person not being treated with dignity. But it's like, oh, that would make me really uncomfortable. But being courageous means I'm going to say something anyway. I'm going to do something anyway. I'm going to put myself out there anyway. I am sweating like profusely, and and my voice sounds like I'm going to vomit, but I'm going to do it anyway, because the people, the person, the whatever is happening deserves to be treated with dignity. And courageous discomfort is speaking up, doing something, even when I'm really terrified to do it. And that's what we're talking about, people being allies, people being advocates, speaking up, because the discomfort is, it's not worth it.
Right. I'm going to be honest. This is our first podcast doing for this book. And Shanterra and I have been, once in a while, we've talked about the privilege that I have, not only as being a white person raised Jewish, but white for all intents and purposes, and the platform that I have and the privilege I have because I've written a lot of successful books that a lot of parents have bought. And when we decided about writing this book, it wasn't really a question to me, which Shanterra laughed at me later about, of course I'm going to write this book. Like, of course I am, because I don't feel like I've done enough. And we've talked a lot, though, about what the possible consequences for me are about this, because it's really easy to buy a book, that I write about mean girls and teens and mental health and young people and friendships and parenting. That's pretty easy. But this is much harder. This is not like this thing of, oh, this is like should be so extraordinary. It's that, and I think to go to what Shanterra is saying is that you recognize you're uncomfortable and you take the risk, because you know that taking the risk is actually more important than not taking the risk, in the way in which you want to live your life, in the way in which you accept that there are going to be difficult things that happen as a result of making difficult choices. But every choice has consequences. And so to not do something has consequences. And not only is it a consequence to the community, because we're also connected to each other. And we can see the cost of not being connected to each other right now. We can see the cost of people in positions of authority and power who are very effectively dividing us. We can see the cost of going on social media and being enraged by what we see, because social media companies are literally deliberately doing us to keep us engaged. So we can see the cost of not being in communication with each other and not being connected with each other. And so what is the cost of repair? The cost of repair is that we have to be willing to take these risks. And that means that if you're whatever position of privilege you're in, and all of us have positions of privilege in some ways, I think, that we're in some ways that we're not, or it's not just like you have privilege and you don't. I think it can be more complex than that. But you take the position of privilege that you recognize and identify that you do have, and you use that for upholding the dignity of all people and to repair the connection that we are losing.
As something, I love, Ross, that you talked about the repair, because I think a lot of people don't talk enough about repairing what has happened. Yes. And we are so divided, and we've gotten to this point where, and I'm a big advocate and believer in self-care. And I think a lot of times self-care has also been interpreted as don't try or don't do the work, and not to diminish self-care, right? Because I'm a big take care, block, do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself. But I think we have gotten to the point where we are so quick to, and I'm trying my best not to use the word cancel, but it fits right now. But we've gotten so quick to cancel somebody and to cancel us, and that includes family. Like we've gotten so, I'm for my peace, for my, for my, and it's like, I get it, but not engaging, and that's what this book prompts us to do, right? Because not engaging and just walking away because we are uncomfortable or because we are afraid is not the answer. And sometimes we got to wiggle in our seat just a little bit and just see, can we engage in this conversation? Because the book is also full of tips and scripts, but we don't want you to stand there with the book in your hand and read the script, because
that would be awkward.
That'd be so awkward. Right, hold on. And then
you gotta have faith in yourself. You gotta have faith in yourself.
You gotta believe.
Say.
Right. But we say that because oftentimes we are quick to just walk away instead of trying. And what we're asking is that there's an effort made. And that doesn't mean it's going to work. And that doesn't even mean that you're going to end with, hugging each other and like, I'm so glad we had this conversation. No, but it means that you can also look at yourself and say, you know what? I tried. And
walking away doesn't mean you walk away forever, right?
Yeah.
Like walking away doesn't mean walk away forever. Walk away means sometimes you walk away to regroup, get yourself calmed down. And then you are there to be present and mindful and focused another time. So I think this whole thing, Shanterra, about the self-compassion, I just got to say, I think it's a really, like the compassion thing, and then getting yourself to a place where you can go back.
Yeah.
I think that's where, we've really lost that. We feel like, oh no, we got to get out. But I think we need to ask ourselves some really hard questions.
Some people who are not willing, to meet you or to engage, because you can tell when someone is curious about what you're saying or interested, and you may disagree, but you're like, okay, I'm gonna sit here. I want to see where this may go. And then there are some people who are leading with disagreement, who there is no room for it at all, right? There's no room for conversation. There's just straight up anger and discomfort. And we're not asking you to engage with those folks, but we're asking you for those people that may disagree and that they may have a different opinion, or they may not know. And as a Black person living in America, I always wonder about my Black card, and I wonder if it's gonna get taken. And then I realize, can nobody take it from me? Because whatever, it's mine. And so, but that also means, as Black, Indigenous people of color, we may have to come to the table. And I know that may be different from what a lot of people are saying, but all I'm suggesting is that we come to the table. We may have to wiggle in our seats too and be a little bit uncomfortable. I'm not asking you to jeopardize your peace at all. We're saying courageous discomfort means I'm going to sit at the table with my colleague. They have said something totally ridiculous in another staff meeting. No one else is saying anything. I like this job. I want to continue to come to this place. So let me have a conversation. Let me see if this person is willing to engage. Of course, I would love for a white person to step in and have this conversation with them, but no one has stepped up yet. And because this is also my place of business, and this is where I come every day, it needs to be safe for me. So I'm going to ask this person to hold back a few minutes, and let's see if we can have a conversation.
Yeah.
So I have one thing I want to add from our book, because I think it's these moments that, like, well, what do you say? Remember, we said, like, don't say exactly what Shanterra and I are talking about, because then it'll be weird, and don't bring the book with you. I can be like, oh, wait, page 75. But, Shanterra mentioned, like, are people asking questions? And in the book, we talk about having curious questions versus non-curious questions. And curious questions really show in people's tone and often in their body language that they actually are curious. They actually want to know more about you. In comparison, non-curious questions are a question that's hiding a way to put you down or to ridicule what you're saying, demean you, those kinds of things. And then they can always fall back on, well, I was just asking you questions, so you're being too sensitive or you're being too angry, and then they can dismiss you again. Right. And when you're in that situation, you can get so angry. And then, what happens lots of times with people is that we sit on it until something small, and like one more staff meeting, one more little slight, one more little thing, and then you blow up. And it's understandable, right? I mean, it's so understandable. So in the book, what we're doing is we're saying, look, if somebody, here's how you distinguish between a curious question and a non-curious question. And when you get one of those non-curious questions, when you ask the person to hold back for a few minutes, like Shanterra's talking about, the person's going to get like, oh, what's going to happen, right? And when you say to this person, hey, I just want to ask you something, the way you asked that question in the staff meeting, it didn't come across to me as you actually wanted to know the answer. It came across to me, maybe I'm wrong, but it came across to me as you were putting down what I was saying. Can you tell me which one I'm dealing with? Do you want to know the answer, or were you actually just trying to put me down? And they're going to stumble over the words and they're going to whatever, but when you clarify what is happening, I think what is so frustrating for people is they know what's happening, but they can't put it to words. And so when you can clarify what's happening, no matter what the person responds, you walk out that door, as Shanterra is saying, this is your place of work, and you have the right to be treated with dignity and feel like you are taking care of yourself in those situations in these little but really profoundly important ways. So I really, like, again, you don't have to say exactly what we're saying, but we do want you to have these tools to be able to name what is happening in front of you.
Absolutely. No, this is great. And the way I'm taking this in, listening, is, well, the way I see it rather, is somebody's going to get free by what you have here. And I know I'm talking to after somebody just shouted and they've been in the office, so they've been going, I'm Baptist. Somebody just shouted. Hey, you just missed your shout. You just missed your shout. Somebody's gonna get free. Somebody is me. I'm one of those people, because I am gonna be honest. Good people listening, if you're white or otherwise, having been microaggressed and oppressed and repressed, sometimes the question doesn't come across as curious when you are leaned in and you wanted to, I had a person lean in and want to ask me about fried chicken. And I wanted to say, does your mother fry fried chicken? The key in me wanted to say that, listen to what I'm saying. Yeah. I wanted to say, does your mama? But we're sitting at I'm being honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it struck me as really offensive. Yep. It was offensive. And you're asking me this in front of this audience. And all that I could say, and this happened many years ago, like almost 2 decades ago, but it still stings. Because number one, I was humiliated, and I felt as though that was not a curious question. I was immediately put on defense, and again, having to keep myself intact. And I don't know if for me in that moment, it was about attending to, the oppressor, right? As we talked about a moment ago, it was attending to me to make sure that I didn't just get walked out of that building. Yeah. And I had to kind of sit for a moment. And I said, don't ever ask me anything like that again. Yeah. And I cracked a little smile at the end. And that lunch was quiet for listen, that was the most quiet lunch. It was like the luncheon had come to a screeching halt, all because one of my white counterparts had caught the movie Soul Food, and decided to ask me about fried chicken in front of people like that. And it was like, wow. So, and I looked like the villain to some people, and some people, that individual looked like the villain. It was really a mixed bag. So what I'm saying is, there's some freedom. Somebody's going to get free in reading this book. And there are some things that I can learn, because as you're talking about the curious question and those people that were calling and texting and those coworkers that were wanting to check on my heart and soul and ask about my son, I believe that they were really coming from a curious and sympathetic kind of place versus the person that, to me, was pretty brave. I mean, that was really not brave, really bold.
Brazen.
Brazen, exactly. You took the word out of my mouth. Somebody's going to get free in reading this book, and some good, solid insights, and even, I would say, rules of engagement for navigating this. And I'm really grateful for the two of you, and grateful that we're having this conversation, because I'm laughing about that fried chicken incident now, but it was not a laughing matter in that moment.
Absolutely.
It was not.
Kia, I'm so glad you said that, because I think, and this is connected to slavery was so long ago. And I when I hear statements, or when I hear testimonials or experiences like yours, and I have plenty situations like that I can give. And I don't think that white people really understand how long it stays with you. Like how long those interactions stay with you. So as much as people would want us to believe that slavery was so long ago, and to just, forget it, let it go, forget, and I'm just like, you don't understand that, one, it's in us. It's part of our DNA. It's part of who we are. It's our ancestry. It's so forgetting it and pretending that it was so long ago, because it wasn't. It wasn't. When situations like, and I would say slavery adjacent, right? Because it's still a mistreatment. It's still denying us our humanity. There's still something in systemic racism that wants to make sure that we may not be enslaved, but there is still slavery happening every day. Absolutely. There is still a denial of humanity. There's still a threat to dignity. And so when people say, oh, stuff was so long ago, statements like that at a luncheon, right? At a luncheon 20 years ago, and somebody has experienced that last week, because this happens all of the time. So even though the system of slavery may have ended, and I'm saying, I'm scrunching my face because I'm like,
for some,
right?
Yeah, for some,
right.
There is still evidence. There is still remnants. It's still happening every day, and a statement like that is proof, because there is no way, and Ross, you could tell, because I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't believe that somebody didn't know that was wrong, that was offensive, that was a microaggression, that was all that, all the things. Even when people say, I was just asking.
I'm not making this up. And
I believe you.
Yeah,
you know.
I'm not making this up.
Absolutely.
Somebody got asked something like that last week that's watching this. When I read the title of the book, The Curious or Nosy, I admit I'm a little nosy, I wanted to know more about these 20 questions, especially given my lived-in experience I just shared. Those 20 questions about race and racism, I remember wondering if they are questions that white people, whether they are avowed allies or not, have asked me about topics surrounding race and racism. Can you share one of the most common questions this book answers, especially as we know the holiday season is coming up and folks prepare to families. Look, the luncheons, we're back in person, we're outside, the luncheons are happening, and folks are going to be in the company of people that might have questions and even divergent views about race and racism. What can you share? Don't want y'all to give away too much tea, because if you want the tea, you got to buy it.
I'll tell you. Yeah, right. I mean, I'll tell you what I think is what I hope to be the most helpful. And I think when people, even now with the book, just with people who, we have a couple of copies out and people are responding they're laughing because they recognize the truth of it. is the chapter we have that's called, remember, they're all based on these questions, is how racist does a relative have to be for me to say something? Right? How, at what point do I go, oh, as Shanterra says, like the buzzer gets hit and you're like, nope, now I got to say something. And I think that a lot of people, yeah. And also I got to say, because we were shopping this book out, some of the questions were not necessarily politically correct, meaning they were the things that people actually say to each other or they want to say, they keep it inside. And it was really funny because, not funny, it was that thing of sometimes I recognize that I'm in a little bubble of my own, that being able to talk about these things a lot. And so I think that question of how racist does someone have to be for me to say something is the question that a lot of people ask, because we're constantly judging what is the cost, right? What's the price of saying something? So I think that's one of my, and then my other favorite, Shanterra, my other favorite is from someone who was Black that we asked the question to, which was, and the question is, can I just do my job? That's another chapter where you are a person of color and you are in a situation where you, again, are having to monitor your reactions to things, or people are saying things, or this person was referring to a situation where they were put in a horribly unethical situation. There's no gray area about it. It was an unethical situation they were being asked to participate in. As a result of bringing it forward, the white woman who was involved in this in some way started to cry because she got upset that other people were thinking badly of her and all this kind of stuff. And of course, the response, right, from this woman who is being put into a terrible situation is, can I just do my job? Can I just do my job? And I think that on the other side, I think that's one of, not on the other side, but sort of related or in alignment with that is sort of the other side. It's like, I just want to be able to do my job. And wow, these things are making it harder. So those are my two favorite. I don't know about that. I hope people can respond to and relate to.
Yeah, I agree. I think the how racist, that is, I think people, I think for some people who may get the book, they're going to look at the table of contents, they're going to look at the questions, and then they're going to flip.
Yeah, they're going to go right there.
And because
Thanksgiving right
they're like, oh wait, Thanksgiving, let me go ahead and just read, and I really think that people wonder, like, okay, people may say something, but it's kind of race. I mean, it's kind of, but I mean, do I have to say something right now? And I really, and we'll talk about this in the book, like, I really think people wish that there was a buzzer over our heads that's like, okay, that was kind of, okay, it was kind of, it's bad, it was kind of, and then like, but they say something, it's like, ding, ding. But unfortunately, we don't have a buzzer. We're not walking around with a buzzer over our heads. We don't, so it's this idea of, no, we don't want you walking around fighting everybody all day, because it gets tiring.
That is exhausting.
It is. But at the same time, there are some things that have been ignored under the umbrella of keeping the peace. But you don't have peace on the inside. You at dinner and your glass plate is making so much noise. You are upset, right? And so it's at this point, and we talked earlier about self-care.
Yeah,
it's amazing to me how we will include, or we will try to use the stamp of self-care when it comes to not really want to deal with people that we don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
And when it comes to people in our family or people in our lives that we can't really kick to the curb or get rid of quickly, we will sacrifice our own peace, our own self-care, and not wanting to have a conversation with them. And so I think the how racist, and then I think another one that is really that I think is going to be cause for a lot of conversation is, why are Black women so angry?
Oh yeah,
right. And
that's
it's like,
oh yeah, that's
you have not even seen us angry. You have no idea what it means to be for me to be angry, because I can smile. Listen, Kia, like at the lunch, you
get scared. Imagine how I was at that lunch.
Exactly. But this idea that we are so angry, and that we are going to flip tables, and especially in the workplace, especially in the stores, and this impression that we are so angry, when there is so many reasons why we are, or why we should. But yet what is on display, you don't really see Black women being angry. And so I think that especially when I think of people who may be in the corporate sector, who may be in nonprofits, who may even work at schools, this idea of, she's going to be upset. I can honestly say there is no place, no profession, no job I've ever had where people have seen me angry. But there's always this,
Right. Bracing.
And I'm just
Shanterra, am I allowed to disagree with that? Because you get angry at me.
Yeah, but we're not at work.
Oh, okay.
It's time and a place. It's a time and a place now. We not at work.
We're not at work.
Right.
We're working, but we're not at work. But I can think of the number of times when someone is like, Shanterra, Shanterra, and I'm just like, you have no idea. You have no idea. But the stereotype, Black women being angry, the stereotype, and when I look at social media and I see people going off in stores, they don't look like me.
They don't look like you and I.
So I'm like, well, that's interesting that we get to be angry and you have no idea what that really looks like. So I think that's going to also be a chapter where it will be a lot of conversation.
I'm going to get into this book, good people, and I encourage you to consider your first sale here.
Thank you.
On the Black Fundraisers podcast.
Thank you.
So, ladies, we've arrived to the part of the program that I affectionately refer to as For the Culture, because we have a little bit of fun and delve into rap and hip hop culture. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Now, as you prepare to release this seminal book, Courageous Discomfort, let's suppose you're kicking off a world tour entitled Courageous Discomfort.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Just go with it. Mm-hmm. And you have the opportunity to take 2 rap or hip hop artists on the road with you. One is your opening performer. The other is your closer that's taking it on home. Who are you taking and why?
Okay.
Well, can you do the one we're doing together? Because I came up with my 2 too. Yeah. I don't know if you saw. Okay.
So I will, to you good people, let me just say, I struggled because I don't know if I know what hip hop is, or because I am an old school person, and so I really struggle with that, because my first thought was I would take India.Arie and Jill Scott like that. But,
I could dig that,
right? But I don't know
if your soul. So
exactly.
2004.
I had to think about it, and I was like, okay, if somebody had to open, I thought Missy Elliott, because she just. One, I just like her, and I love Work It, that song, because it's one of my favorite workout songs, but it's also just one of them, it just gets you moving.
Work It.
Right? And then I thought closing, I would bring Kendrick Lamar.
You better testify.
Listen, and all I need him to do is "We Gonna Be All Right." That's
you better testify.
That's all I need him to do, because I think that song is an anthem by itself. We Gonna Be All Right.
Gonna be all right.
That's it.
I'm with that.
So too. I would actually, Shanterra, I was thinking about a playlist when we go on our book tour in a couple of weeks. I was thinking about a playlist for it, and I mean that's obviously not only a classic, but it's an obvious. It's so powerful. It's an obvious classic and so appropriate. So my answers were: I saw Shanterra's first, actually, in full disclosure, I saw hers first, and so I wanted to go a little bit different, which is Ozomatli, which is have been around for 20 years or so, and they're from Los Angeles, and they've just done for many years. They've done this whole just combination of all different kinds of things and cultures, and so they have a song that I've always loved called "Who Discovered America." And so I think for me, that would be, I think the first one for the opening, but also because I've been married to somebody from Spain for a really long time, like 26 years. And so I've also know a lot about Spanish hip hop and protestations over there and all different kinds of ways that they have been doing. And so there's a group called Ojos de Bruja that has a song called Piedras versus Tanques, so stones versus tanks. and Ojos de Bruja is of the witch. And so they are, again, like this incredibly multicultural, all different kinds of people from Spain together, and they've been doing this work for a long time. So those were my two openers, but I do think that We're Gonna Be All Right, it's really, I mean, it's the way that we should close everything, I think, right? It's just so powerful, and so it's so inspirational and so grounding at the same time. So have to agree with her on that.
I love it. I'm here for it. I'm here for the Courageous Discomfort tour.
Yeah.
I
We need
am.
a playlist. We
And the playlist.
I think we should.
The Black Fundraisers podcast has a pretty dope old school, because I'm an old school
Okay.
hip hop. I have he'll be 18 in a few weeks here. My 18-year-old keeps me, current, because when he gets in my car, and I had to tell him recently, look, my car, my music, your car.
Yes.
I'm a golden era rap and hip hop chick. So if you like golden era hip hop, the Missy, Nice and Smooth, Talib Kweli, all of that kind of stuff, the old Bad Boy, and Wu-Tang. As a matter of fact, I'm going to see the Wu-Tang Clan tomorrow. I'm really excited about it.
A friend of mine went last night. Yes.
The Nas and Wu-Tang. I was very angry that Method Man isn't, but Busta Rhymes is a good runner-up, I guess, even though it's
Method
gonna be
Man working. He doing other stuff. I know.
I can't be mad at him. I saw his little live. He said, "I'm 51 and I got options." I said, "You know what, brother? You sure do. And you better be glad I'm a lover of Christ, because you a fine 51-year-old and I don't come as nobody's husband." So you better be glad I'm saved, brother.
Yeah.
But I'm with it. I'm in full support of this book. I want to thank you all for stopping by the Black Fundraisers podcast. This has been a blast. It's been educational. It's been authentic and fruitful and good people. I know you'll let me know what you thought about it. Email, get social with us. Let us know what you thought. And as that book comes to shelves, get your book and get your read on. And until next week, good people, stay tuned, stay down, and keep your head up.